Hello, I'm Leona, and this is the first video in my first knitting project. So today, we're not going to knit, we're going to shop. And we all love to shop. There are some things you need when you are knitting, and today I'm going to show you how to select which ones you want to buy for this project. Alright, so when you want to start buying your supplies for a knitting project, the two things you need to keep in mind are how thick you want your yarn to be, and what size needle do you need? I have 3 yarns here, and you can see, I can get them all lined up together, that they are different thicknesses. The black one is very thin, and the white one's a little fatter, and the purple one is really fat. And you can see how the size will affect the difference. Each of these swatches is 20 stitches wide and 20 rows tall. This one's also 20 stitches wide, 20 rows tall. This one of the same size, still 20 wide, 20 tall, and the little baby one, still 20 stitches wide and 20 rows tall. What's the difference? Well, the main difference is the size needle you use. But you can see that this thicker yarn makes something really big and thick and puffy and cozy. This one makes something a little more traditional. And this one makes a little finer, more open weave. Now the reason these two are the same is you can see that they are different sizes of yarn, okay? But I did them on the same needle. And so they're almost the same size. And if you could look at this one really closely, you would see it feels like it's more open weave than that one. And this little bitty baby, he was knit on his correct size yarn. So how do you know what size needle to get with your yarn? Well, when you go to the store and you find a yarn you like, if you look on the back of the label, there's a little square. See this knitting needles? Okay, US 3, that's the size of the needle. Now the size of the needle will be written on the package and on the end of the needle. There's lots of ways to be sure you're using the size you think you are. What this information here tells us is that with this particular yarn, if you use a size 3 needle and you have 28 stitches in a row and you do 36 rows, then you should have a square that is 4 inches by 4 inches. That's called a swatch. And we do a test swatch most of the time to be sure that we're not going to end up with something that is this size if what we actually want to make is something this size. With a scarf, it's not necessarily important to do a swatch, but we're going to do one anyway. So, if you look on here, it'll tell you which size needle. This swatch was knitted on a size 3 needle. This same yarn was knitted on a size 8 needle, which is fatter. So you can see the same yarn can give you 2 completely different size swatches with the same number of stitches. If you compare these two, they're different size yarns. This one's a good bit thicker or fatter than this one, but I used the same size needle. Okay, so let's look at some needle sizes. Here are the size 3 needles that this little baby swatch was knitted on. On the end of the knob here, you can't see it really in the picture, there's a 3. This tells me these are size 3 needles. How fat needles are is reflected by their size. These are 3s, these are 6s, or 8s, I'm sorry, and these are 10s. It's hard to tell, but the 10 is fatter than the 8. Okay? How do I know what I'm getting? There's the needle size right there, US 6. Now you can see the 4 millimeters. If we go back to our yarn package, 3.25 millimeters is how big a US 3 is. 4 millimeters is how big a US size 6 is. Sometimes you have to look a little closer. There it is on that package. Okay, so you always want to keep your needle packages. If you lose your package, this is a handy little gadget. Now it's got a measuring tape and all sorts of stuff. The only thing I ever use it for is to determine the size of the needles. I believe this is a size 8. So if I put the needle in the size 8 hole, okay, you can see it goes in. If I try to put it in the size 7 hole, it will not go in. Won't do it. So this is a size 8 needle because it will fit in all the way into the size 8 opening, but it will not go into the 7 opening. And so this is a handy little gadget to have. Stitch markers are handy little gadgets to have too. So you can pick some of those up or not. They're not necessarily important for this project, but I use them all the time for other things. So we're going to go to the store in a little bit, and we're going to look at different colors of yarn, different thicknesses of yarn, and decide what do we want to get. Do we want to have a fat, fluffy scarf? Just your regular run-of-the-mill looking scarf? Or do we want to have to put a bunch of stitches into it with really fine yarn? Okay, and what size needles do we want to get? So, since we live in a small town, I gotta say, see you at Walmart. So here we are in everyone's favorite store, Walmart. And they have this pretty small selection of yarns, but it's usually enough to get the job done if you just want to knit a scarf. So they've got everything from little thin yarns, chunkier yarns, got fuzzy yarns, really chunky yarns. So let's talk about some of these. This really chunky yarn, you could make a scarf out of it, but it's more designed for an Afghan. Okay, here's another chunky yarn if you just want a chunky scarf, and you can see they've made a chunky scarf out of it. So we don't know exactly what it looked like because this lady's wearing a great big old poncho. But if you look on the back again, here's the square we talked about. This would take a size 13 needle, okay? And 9 stitches and 12 rows should give you 4 by 4 inch square, okay? I always recommend the feel of the yarn. Put it up against your neck. If you're gonna make a scarf, feel of it. How does it feel on your neck? Does it feel scratchy? Okay, Hometown USA makes a nice soft yarn. You probably would not want to make this into a scarf. Those sparkles get scratchy. My favorite yarn to use is either the Hometown USA or the Caron Simply Soft. Their yarns are always soft. They always make up really pretty. And most of them have this nice sheen to it that you can see. The Red Heart makes okay yarn. It's not particularly soft, but it is less expensive. Okay, so keep on looking at the colors. You can see some of them are self-striping. When you knit this up, it's going to come up with all these in a row for stripes. And they don't really have a picture of what this yarn's going to look like. Okay, so some yarns are self-striping, some are just solid. Here we have a variegated yarn. Okay, it's not going to make stripes, but you can see that it's going to make just a patchy looking pattern. So those make up nice too. Okay, so some words of advice, picking colors and things for a scarf. You might think, oh, that'll go with everything. Well, when you're done, you're just going to have a long scarf like that goes with everything. So if you like a really bland scarf, something like that. I've made a scarf out of that. I didn't like it. You think, oh, this would be beautiful. What a beautiful white scarf. Yes, it would be beautiful. But if you wear makeup, it's not going to be beautiful for long. Okay, here's some nice bright rainbow colors. Just remember, it's on your neck, it's still going to be big, bright rainbow colors. I think this would make a pretty scarf. And there's a lady, she's not wearing that one. The one she's wearing is solid. Okay, but that's something like that makes it pretty in a scarf. Alright, so here we have our knitting needles. Remember I said that they all come in different sizes. Let's just pull this one out at random. This is a US 15. And remember I told you that my knitting needles had the numbers written on the end of them. If we get it just right, you can see there's a 15 written on the end of it. Okay, so they have straight needles in all different sizes. They have circular needles. Okay, there's package of circular needles. Now these little balls of yarn, I wouldn't get those for a scarf. There's not enough in there to make a scarf. So you can find your knitting needles all the way from big to skinny. Sometimes hanging out on the end here, they'll have samples to show you what they look like. Walmart doesn't have those out today. So let's say, just for fun, that I like this mint green. I do like green. I don't need to buy any more green things. And I want to make a scarf out of it. Okay, it does indicate that it's suitable for scarves and hats. And where's our little square to tell us? Oh, there it is. It tells us we want a size 13 needle. So we're going to get our ball of yarn. We're going to come over here to the needles. There's a 14. There's a 10. And so we want to see if we can find a size 13 needle. No one seems to know. That's a size 10. Okay. So they have 10s, 14s, and 15s. So they don't have the 13 that I see. Okay, so I finally found a size 13 needle. And as you can see, these are quite a bit fatter than the 3s you saw earlier in the video. Now, if you're wondering about the colors are pretty much just personal preference. Now, let's find a row. These are all size 15s. They have gold ones and they have purple ones. So suppose I was going to knit on purple yarn. I don't want purple needles in purple yarn. It's hard to see. Okay? And so we're about ready to go. We got our yarn that takes size 13 needles. We got our size 13 needles, and we are ready to start knitting.